Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? It's day 21 of RPG A Day 2021. And like all the days, there were four prompts to choose from, except for Sundays. And so I looked at the word simplicity. And if you've watched this channel for any length of time, it's no surprise that I tend to gravitate towards or prefer games with a simpler, smaller rule set. And that topic's been talked to death. And it's not that, simple good, complex bad. That's not where I'm coming from. And in fact, my friends and I were talking about this today, and we've talked about this many times actually, but we were talking about a game, and we'll call it Game X, that's popular, and people very often talk about it being fast and furious. But when we've read this game, thinking well, it seems kind of complex and slow, and then even when you watch actual plays of it by people that are really into the game, it seems a little complex and slow. But one of my friends had this epiphany, in his research and in hearing people talk about this game or whatever, that in fact many of them have come from the perspective of having first played Game Y. And Game Y is a behemoth. It's a monster. It's it's full of procedures and rules. And comparing, of course they think Game X is fast and furious and simple, but maybe they haven't looked at games A, B, C, D, and F, that are simpler still. But this video isn't about that. The fact that I like simpler games in general isn't interesting. My motives for liking that's more interesting. And, it didn't occur to me when I was younger that people would come to the hobby for different reasons, that they were here for different reasons, that they had different intentions for play. But as I got older, I started to figure that out. And if you ask a bunch of us, what's your motivation? Why are you here? Why do you keep coming to the hobby? What brings you here? What are you looking for? You're going to get a lot of different answers. And you start to realize that, well, there's no right or wrong answers except for the person, saying the answer. Know thyself is really important, figuring out what you like. But I believe it's also important to figure out, why do you like it? When something happens you like, why did I actually like that? When something happens that you don't like, why did I not like that? Knowing what your motivations are and where they come from, that's important. And so I thought about myself, and because, hey, it's my favorite subject. And I definitely enjoy that uncertainty when we're rolling the dice and we're not sure what's going to happen, and we're kind of crowded around the plastic odds, wondering what our fate is going to be. And that's fun. And there's also that uncertainty of not knowing what's going to happen in the emerging fiction, because we're playing literally to find out. We don't know what's going to happen. And I have this other motivation to a certain extent where, I certainly enjoy watching the emergent fiction, or whatever you want to call it, that's happening before our eyes. But not just, from on high as a spectator slash creator, but from ground level. That's more important to me, And what I mean by that is from the standpoint of the characters, whether it's, I'm playing a character as a player, or whether I'm the player that's the game master and I'm playing several different characters. Seeing things from their perspective, considering that the situation is real, that the character is real, going on those assumptions, that their motivations, their motives are real. What are those motives? And seeing things from their eyes, that's very enjoyable to me. And so what I've found is that, my primary motive of wanting to see things or experience things from the character level, and my secondary motives, you might say, of, enjoying watching the fiction happen, as we kind of create it, or whatever actually happens, and that also that thrill of uncertainty and rolling the dice, those secondary motivations. It's harder for me to engage with those fully if a game is more complicated and there's more steps and more procedures. That doesn't mean that's bad. That just means that's something for me. And I've certainly had the experience of learning more complicated games, and it becomes more and more natural, and I don't have to worry about it as much anymore, and becomes more like second nature. But I believe that that tends to happen a little slower for me than for some other people, and that's fine. It has nothing to do with one way is better than the other. But our motives, that's the thing that's really interesting to me. Why do we like different types of experiences? What brings us, various people to the table? And then, the motives of the characters themselves. That's really, really interesting. So I start to ask these questions and observe things, and who are these characters? What do they want? Do we care? Why don't we care if we don't care? What is it that we're here for instead of that? What is bringing you back to play? And when we're playing, Who are these characters? All that kind of stuff. And at the end of the day, that stuff doesn't matter as such, but I found that like when I understand my own motivations for playing, it's much easier to do the things I need to do to make it more likely that I'm going to have the kind of experience that I want. And when I understand other people's motivations for being here, it's easy for me or for us to figure out, should we play together? What game should we play together? We sit down, what kind of consensus do we need to come to? When there's a group of us, figuring everybody's motivations, taking all those into account. And also, when we realize like who the characters are, what their motivations are, what makes them tick, what makes the NPCs tick, what's going on here, it becomes much easier to play them, and things just seem natural. And the more we set ourselves up for a good experience because we know ourselves, and then we know the other people, we understand the motivations ourselves, the other people, and the characters, it becomes almost effortless and, dare I say, fun. And that's pretty motivating. Pretty cool, huh?